Steve here with Table Rock Tea Company. We are in the middle of making a small batch of Bear Claw and Carolina Lapsang. And so we have plucked tea this morning and it has been withering all day. And Jen is there behind me and she is now confirming that we are ready to go on to the next stage, which is rolling. And so what she's gonna look for is that the tea should hold into a ball when you crumple it, and it should also smell a little bit fruity. So as long as that's there, we should be good to go. And so what we'll do is this whole table here of withered tea, we'll load into bins, and then it'll be off to the rolling stage. So again, I custom made these tables. These are a perforated like 1/8 inch holes on aluminum, and then welded steel frame. So this will hold quite a bit. For those of you interested, if you are growing tea on a somewhat commercial scale, the general statistic, I found this from some obscure magazine, I think from China or India, is that you need 200 square feet of withering surface area per acre of tea grown. So that's how you would calculate. Now you don't have to go horizontal, you can go vertical. And actually, as you can see here, this is a double-decker table. These two, actually this comes off. If you wanted to put it on the ground, you can. But we have it stacked. You can also use speed racks for baking. That also works as well. So we should have a pretty good amount here. I think we got a leaf in here, so we call that out. And yeah, we should be good to go. I'll go ahead to the next stage. We'll make a video of that, which is rolling. And yeah, that'll just be in a little bit. So yeah, first harvest of 2022. We're kind of happy about that. Good to get a new season going. We have gone from the withering stage of tea onto the rolling stage, and I'll show you what that's all about. Jen is here behind me, packing up the smallest possible roller you can buy. And I'm gonna show you a little bit about that process. So this is a CR25 roller. The 25 stands for 25 centimeter diameter. And what she is doing here is she's packing this tea completely packed down into that roller as much as it can hold. Now, it is super important if you are looking to buy tea rollers, which, by the way, I'm happy to help broker that deal. We do charge a fee for that, but we bring in a lot of equipment, so if you're interested, we can do that. But she's packing it pretty full because if you notice down here, there's a gap. Okay, so the bigger the roller, the bigger that gap's gonna be. So if you just have a little bit of tea, a big roller is not gonna do you any good. You really wanna match your roller to the size of production that you have. Now what she's doing is she's cranking down this plate. This plate is on a spring system, so as the roller goes and it bumps over the ridges, that thing can keep pressure, but that it's not gonna just bottom out. So she's cranking that down as far as it'll go. And then you can see that there are these veins here, those little brass things. Those are bumps, and speed bumps almost. And what they'll do is as the roller goes, it'll kind of start breaking apart the cells. So she's gonna go ahead and turn that on. And, yeah, and we're gonna set the timer. We're actually gonna do several rounds. We set this for 3 minutes for our timer at full pressure. And yeah, we're gonna do several rounds of rollers. For some reason, this thing's wobbling out. I don't know if the locks are on it, probably not. It looks like they're not. So she's gonna go ahead and put the wheel locks on. Just, of course, watch your hands. This roller was from China. I took the top part, and I welded this frame together. And this frame also has this rail here that'll hold a bin. And that's really nice because underneath there is a trap door that releases the tea into it. So that'll drop into the bin. So this is the roller. And I'll kind of try to zoom in here. But what it's doing is basically making everything juicy, okay? You can actually start seeing some of the moisture on there. And what we're gonna do, we go for what we call soaping, foaming, and we usually don't get to that until the second, usually the third roll, but sometimes the second, depending on the wither. So I'll show you what soaping looks like in just a minute, but that's essentially the tea roller. So I'm just gonna kind of let this go for a little bit so you can get the idea. Always good to have some safety features. Again, when you get these from China, they come usually on a tripod. Everything's on the floor. The FDA, USDA hates that. So you really want to get that off the ground. That's why the bin's off the ground. They usually don't come with a plug, so we actually, or a on-off switch. So we put these industrial switches on, also with a kill switch. Yeah, just some safety stuff. Of course, the frame, you can even put cages around the top so that you don't get hands into the mechanism. And yeah, just be careful. Has a lot of torque on these rollers. And that's it. So we're gonna let this go for 3 minutes. We'll come back and do it again a second time, possibly a third time. And I'll show you what the soaping looks like. Okay, we are back. And so we have let this run now for 1 round of 3 minutes. And so what we're gonna do now is crank up this lid. It's gonna swing out of the way. It's pretty cool. It's got this little keyhole. And what she's gonna do, you can see there's like a donut almost. It's kind of has a hole there. It's really compressed. This is called a Dhol, D-H-O-O-L, in India. And what she's doing is she's breaking up the Dhol. And so this will be for the next round of rolling. And so she'll break that up so that we don't miss anything. And yeah, so they actually have Dhol breaking machines that you can put a big Dhol in and it'll kind of go through this sort of sifting thing. But we just do that by hand. We kind of scoop up some of the stuff that's on the rolling plate or the rolling table, put those in there too. Just kind of mix it up to make sure that everything is going to get rolled through. This withering was a little bit off, and so we've got some broken pieces, but that's pretty normal too. What we're going to look for is that everything is nice and juicy. Right now you can see that there is moisture, but it's not quite where we want it to be. So this will go in for yet another round, and then we're gonna hopefully get to that foaming stage in just a second. I don't know if you can hear this, but if you listen really close, you can hear the squeaking noise. That's actually the leaves being squeezed around. That's a good thing. Okay, so this thing has been rolling now, the second run, for almost 3 minutes. And I don't know if you can see this, but you're starting to see little white foam on the brass pieces. Can you kind of see that? She's not going to point to it, obviously, because her fingers would be in there. But you can see this little foam starting to develop. These little white streaks. That is what we're looking for. We want it to be a little foamier than that. Foamier than now, or whatever. But anyway, we're getting close. And once it gets there, we know that we've ruptured all the cells that we want. This is for a bear claw that we're making, so understand that there's a lot of different techniques to this. And so some people roll for several rounds, some people roll super hard, some people, have different things that they look for. For us, again, this is getting pretty close. You can keep going. If you look right there, it's real juicy. That's awesome. The Dhol is super, super wet. We're probably gonna, I don't know. One more round.
Yep. Maybe a half a round.
Yeah, maybe half a round. So the way we do our bear claw, not to disclose trade secrets or whatever, but we do more or less a light rolling and then a very long oxidation. And we'll show you that in just a second. So one more round, maybe half a round to go. Okay, so we are finished with the rolling phase, and Jen's gonna go ahead and take that Dhol out. We're actually going to use part of this batch to make our Carolina Lapsang smoked tea, which has become pretty famous actually in the tea world, and we're pretty proud of that. I don't know if I'll video that tonight. I probably won't. We'll just kind of go through the stages of making a black tea or a heavily oxidized tea. So she's just separating into bins to go into the smoker. We'll be back. Okay, so we have rolled all of our tea and it's about ready to go onto our oxidation trays. And what Jen's doing here is a trick of the trade, I suppose, a little helpful tip. But she is taking a brush. We just use a basting brush or an old, new paint brush. That works fine too. And she is brushing this out while it's nice and wet, because when we get back tomorrow, we'll clean everything. But if you don't do that, if you don't, she's sweeping the edges of the veins, or the what do you call them, Jen?
Ribs.
The ribs. They'll get stuck because all that sticky stuff, the juice from the tea will just kind of make an adhesive. And so by the time you get to it in the morning, it'll be a real mess to clean. So we'll do that with the whole table. Plus it saves your tea. And so she'll scrape all that in. And then again, there's a trap door in the middle here, right there. You can see the circle. And that we can drop into the bucket as well. So anyhow, we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so now the next step is going to be putting this onto our oxidizing trays. So these are just baker's rack pans, and nothing fancy about that. These are perforated pans, and they fit into that over there, which we'll talk about later. Not the cooler, but the proofing oven. And so she's getting these nice and spread out. She's making sure all of the clumps are broken up, so that everything gets to oxidize as evenly as possible. The thinner layer, the best, but you're going to be limited by your capacity, especially if you've got a ton of tea and just so many machines. So anyway, she's going to spread this out as best as possible. And if you'll notice that the edges, she stays away from the edges so that all of the material is on those perforations, so that the moisture can come up through the bottom and down from the top as well. So after this, it is on to the proofing oven. Okay, so our tea has been withered. It has been rolled, and now it is going into the oxidation chamber, or in this case, a proofing oven. Same thing. We're looking for high humidity and low temperature for however long you want to do it. Oxidation, basically, when you bruise the tea, it goes from green to black through a series of oxidation. The longer you let it go, the blacker the tea becomes. So heat and drying stops that process. So we like to keep it nice and moist, so high humidity, but at a low temperature to let it go for as long as we want it for this particular type of tea. So the oxidation chamber, which again, we just use an old Subway proofing oven, looks like this. We've got our racks. Again, this is a light load. Usually we'll have this thing completely full, but we just did a little maintenance plucking today. That goes in there, and then there's a pan of water down here. It sits on a burner, and so that basically steams off into, or I should say evaporates off. It doesn't really reach those temperatures. And that's it. So we're gonna go ahead and turn on the proofing oven. It says that this is the first year. It sounding a little rough. The older girl's a little rough. But that'll keep going, and we will come back and see what it looks like after it's completely oxidized. Okay, so we are back now, and the tea has been oxidizing for several hours. You can see that there's sweat dripping on the door, so obviously it's been kept moist. So we're gonna go ahead and open that up now and see what it looks like. And so if you go turn the light on, is, it's like a little bit brownish. Obviously it's damp. There's some greens still in there, but you can see that it's oxidized pretty good from when it was green. And so now all we're gonna do is take it, and it's gonna go into the bake off stage and dry up here. So we'll get that so that it's nice and crispy, and it'll really turn black at that point. We're gonna get the moisture down to 3 to 4%. So almost done. Okay, so the tea has now been baked, and you can see what that looks like. It's nice and black. It's got a really good smell. Bear Claw traditionally for us has a chocolatey note to it, but you can see right here why we call it Bear Claw, because it looks like little bear claws. Now this will be milled and put into sachets, but that's what it looks like originally. So at this point, we are done and we're ready to package it up. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned to see what else is brewing here at Table Rock Tea Company.